Good afternoon, students. Welcome to Vishnu IAS Academy. My name is Gautam and I'll be dealing with political science and international relations, the optional for civil service mains. Now, you know that in recent times, PSIR or political science and international relations had become a very popular optional among the students. Now, there are a series of reasons as to why PSIR has emerged as such a popular optional, starting from the relevance that PSIR has in the present scheme of the civil service examination, as well as the type of result or success rate that PSIR had been showing in recent times had made this optional little popular among the students. A lot of students have a series of doubts on whether political science and international relations as an optional is amenable to them or not, whether they will be able to manage with the optional, and there are also several myths surrounding the idea that political science has got a lot of syllabus that requires to be covered, and of course there are even arguments that political science and international relations require students to study two subjects, paper 1 about political theory and paper 2 about international relations. All these arguments against political science tends to make students think twice about PSIR. Okay, today we'll try and understand how good political science and international relations is as far as the optional is concerned, and whether PSIR is amenable to students of diverse backgrounds or not. What is the nature of syllabus in political science? What are the demands in the optional? And whether you require to have an academic background in political science to pick up this optional or not, and how this option is going to help you in various stages of your preparation for civil services. About all these questions we'll try and answer today. Okay. More importantly, I'd like to draw your attention to the scheme of the present civil services examination as different from the scheme earlier, so that you can get a right perspective on what should be your focus in your preparation. Okay. So firstly, a few years back, the civil services mains examination had two optionals, both accounting for 4 papers. It had a GS segment accounting for 2 papers, and it had a general essay. Now that was the scheme earlier. Okay. So two optionals, each optional paper accounting for 600 marks in paper 1 and paper 2. Therefore, together, both the optionals accounted for 1200 marks in the previous scheme of things. And there used to be a general studies segment which again contained 2 papers, and each paper accounted for 300 marks. Therefore, general studies was for 600 marks. Therefore, in the previous scheme of the civil services examination, the focus of the candidates was always on the optional, because the weightage of the optional was double compared to GS. Okay. So in general studies, the weightage was only half compared to the optional. Therefore, if the candidates were strong in their optional, even if they were not so good in general studies, or even if they were reasonably good in general studies, they could still sail through to the interview and sometimes even land up in services. Okay. Therefore, the focus of the students in the previous scheme of things was more on the optionals. Okay. If they could score very, very high marks in the optional, then they could go to the interview and they could land in a service. That was the strategy of the students earlier. Okay. But the present scheme of the civil service examination had completely turned the tables against the optionals. You know that, right? Now, in the present scheme of things, we have 4 common papers. And these 4 common papers together accounted for 1000 marks, and we have a general studies segment which has 2 papers, we have an optional segment which has 2 papers, and both these papers in optional accounted for 500 marks. And of course, we have a general essay as well, which accounts for another 250 marks, and therefore, this is the scheme. It means here, the weightage for the general studies papers, the 4 common papers, which can, very loosely called as general studies, the weightage for the general studies is double compared to the optional. Therefore, in the present scheme of things, it is utterly important that the students are strong in GS, because GS and your strength in general studies is going to determine whether you're going to land up finally in the service or not. Okay. So let's keep this first in mind. Let us understand the nature of the examination first, and then let us proceed further to look at political science. Now, With this understanding, one thing is very clear, that candidates will have to be strong in GS. Okay, they'll have to be strong in this segment of the syllabus, along with, of course, general essay. Okay, and if you're strong in GS, and if you're reasonably good in optional also, you can go to the interview. This is the present scheme of things. Okay, now let us try and look at political science, the nature of political science as an optional for civil services. Let us first understand that political science as an optional presents a syllabus which is, let's say, background neutral. Okay, so if you are from a technical background, or if you are a literature student, or if you are a student from social sciences, and whatever is your background, you can still feel comfortable with political science. Okay, this is one aspect of political science. Of course, this is true for a good number of optionals as well. There are a lot of optionals which are background neutral. We have sociology, we have anthropology, for example, okay, which can, be manageable for students of any background. Even political science also is that nature. Okay, it is background neutral, and the concepts that you study in political science are very general, and they are non-technical. Okay, they are very general and non-technical. You study about the formation of state, the roots and the evolution of state. You study the concept of rights, liberty, equality. These are very general concepts. Of course, one aspect of this syllabus is that its very general nature tends to put students on the wrong foot, primarily because of the fact that students start to feel comfortable with the terms, the jargon is not very technical. And therefore, the students start feeling comfortable with the optional, with the content, and therefore they might miss out on the essence. Okay, so don't go by the generality of the syllabus, but the point that I'm trying to make here is that the concepts are very general and they are non-technical. You don't require technical knowledge or technical understanding or elaborate formulae to understand these concepts. They are very non-technical and they are very general in nature. Okay, and secondly, one other aspect about political science is that its content is very rich. You study Indian polity, you study India's foreign policy, you study India in foreign affairs, you study international relations, you study a little of world history, you study Indian society and social issues also to some extent, you study world history, you also study as a part of political science, political philosophy. The content is very rich and very varied. It can keep students interested for a long time. Okay, it is not monotonous. Of course, please remember that every optional has its very interesting and very dry areas as well. That's the case also with political science, but let me say nearly 70% or a little more than that of the syllabus is interesting and absorbing. Okay, so the content of political science is very rich. And thirdly, political science is an option which has very close affinity with current affairs. It has got a very close affinity with current affairs. So whatever you study as a part of your current affairs is going to help value add to your study of political science. And whatever you study in political science helps you gain clarity in concepts that you come across as a part of your preparation in current events. Therefore, both political science and current affairs are very complementary. Okay, I keep telling to my students that for political science optional, one important thing is that you prepare your own notes and then you integrate whatever you study as a part of your current affairs with your political science notes in case you find proper relevance. Relevance is very important here. Okay, once you understand the concept in political science, you'll also be very easily able to correlate whatever you study in current affairs and integrate it in your notes of political science. Okay, so it should not be a problem. Political science is an option which has got a very close affinity with current affairs. Your Indian polity, your Indian foreign affairs, whatever you study as a part of international economic processes, even what you study as a part of social issues, they all can be integrated in your study of political science. Therefore, remember, for students of political science, it is very important that you should adopt what's called as interdisciplinary approach. Please remember that this is a truth not only for students of political science. If you ask me, what is the nature of the civil service examination? There are two characteristic traits that every student should acquire if he wants to taste success in civil service examination. First is, he should adopt interdisciplinary approach. And secondly, the student should be very, very strong in current events. The student should be contemporaneous, and student should be able to adopt what's called as interdisciplinary approach. These two become very important aspects of a candidate's preparation, particularly for an optional like political science. Not only for political science, in general also for civil services examination, you require to be interdisciplinary. You require to be contemporaneous. You should be able to correlate. Okay, because the nature of syllabus that is given to you in general studies is very sketchy and outlineish, and therefore you require to have a proper understanding, a comprehensive understanding, a rounded understanding of issues and events, well-rounded understanding of issues and events that requires you to be able to adopt interdisciplinary approach. That's very much true even for political science also. Okay, so political science requires candidates to be abreast with current affairs, which is also a requirement for the civil service examination. Whatever you study as a part of your current affairs is going to help you in PSIR. Okay, and looking at the syllabus of political science, we know that the syllabus of political science combines static and dynamic concepts. It has content which is static also. For example, we study political philosophy, we study the ideas of Plato, Aristotle, Karl Marx, Machiavelli, Rousseau. These are static part of the syllabus. Not much of a change as this part of the syllabus is concerned. You study those concepts, you understand those concepts. However, while writing answers in the examination, okay, you can give contemporary examples and illustrations in support of your arguments. Okay, so you can combine static part of the syllabus with the dynamic part of the syllabus. Okay, that really helps candidates to get very, very good scores and have a proper understanding of the issues. I'm not trying to make it very complicated, but this is the nature of the optional. Okay. Fourthly, you know that political science, as I told you, is one of the most relevant optionals in the present scheme of civil services examination. We'll see how. We'll very soon see how political science is one of the most relevant optionals in the present scheme of the examination. Very simply put, political science covers syllabus in almost all the general studies papers. Okay. There are components in all the 4 general studies papers which are covered as a part of your syllabus in political science. Okay. And of course, it's also performing well in recent times, showing very high success rate and showing at least 2 to 3 selections every year in the top 10. Okay. So, political science in recent times had been doing well, and that's the reason why political science is becoming a very popular option among the students preparing for civil services, particularly in the last 4 or 5 years. Okay. The value of the content that you study in political science for other segments of the syllabus had made political science a very popular choice. Okay. How much of value addition your study of political science lends to other parts of the syllabus. That makes political science a very popular option. Okay. And whether political science is a doable optional or not. It is doable or not. Okay. There is only one thing that I like to bring to your notice, and that is, there is no part of syllabus in political science which cannot be understood. There is no part of political science at all which cannot be understood. It is very easy to understand, provided of course you have a proper exposure to these concepts, you are properly instructed on these concepts. Then it becomes very easy and the journey in political science becomes very pleasurable. Okay. So, if you are having proper conceptual clarity, if you are able to understand the concepts in political science, and if you have consulted the right kind of literature, then political science is very, very easy. It is a very manageable optional. And in political science, there is nothing that you have to mug up or memorize. You have to understand. Understanding is the key, as far as political science is concerned. There is hardly any part of the syllabus that you require to memorize. Okay, you require to have an understanding of the optional. That is the key as far as political science is concerned. You start at a point, okay, and you go in a particular course. You drift in a particular course in covering the syllabus. Okay, political science is analytical, it's logical, and it goes in a flow. As I told you, the subject goes in a flow, right? You start with Western political thought, okay, and then you start to understand the various ideologies that these political thinkers have generated. We have liberalism, we have socialism, and then we have Marxism, Gandhism, fascism, all these ideologies. So a series of political thinkers have given rise to a number of ideologies. So we will be studying those ideologies, and then we will also then study how these ideologies have shaped the nature, the sphere of state activity, and our understanding of the evolution of state. And from there, of course, we will look at how sovereignty as a concept had contributed to the growth of the idea called state. And then, of course, we will take a look at several concepts in political science like justice, liberty, equality, okay, ideas related to democracy. All these are concepts, and there is a way in how you understand these concepts. The subject, as I told you, goes in a flow. You don't pick up topics at random and try to study political science. Okay, there is a particular flow in which you'll have to slowly get accustomed and then get mastery over these concepts. So, subject is very analytical, it's very logical, and it goes in a flow. Therefore, there is nothing that you have to be technically conversant with. You don't require formulae, you don't require to memorize things, but you require to have a proper understanding of the concepts. Now, that I told you is a very, very key input for political science. Going ahead, understanding the optionals and how do you select the optional. Now, you know that a lot of students pick up their optionals through, something like an intelligent guess or a gut feeling or a hunch, but that's not the way to select an optional. Please remember, selecting the right optional is probably one of the most important steps that you take in your journey at realizing your dream at civil services. Selecting the right kind of optional, whether the optional is amenable to you or not, whether the optional is going to help you in realizing your goal or not. There are a few things that a candidate should keep in mind before selecting an optional. Okay, as non-students have selected their optional because somebody else had advised them to do so. I've looked at candidates who have selected an optional just because somebody else had achieved success with that, but that's not the way. Okay, please remember that you keep in mind 4 or 5 important criteria for selecting an optional. First is, what is the nature of the optional? Okay, it means what is the nature of the content? Whether the optional is based more on memory or whether the optional is based more on understanding. How rich and varied the optional can be. How absorbing and interesting the content in the optional can be. This is how you understand an optional, understanding the nature of the optional. There are some optionals for which probably you might have to draw sketches. There might be optionals for which you have to be more graphical in the way you present your answers. There might be optionals for which you might require to be very good at formula and calculations. There might be optionals for which probably you may require to be displaying skills of literature. Each optional has its own demand. Each optional is unique in its own way. So what is the nature of political science or whatever the optional that you have picked up? Whether your optional requires you to be very good at map pointing and drawing maps, whether the optional that you have chosen requires you to be very good at graphical presentation. Okay, so these are the things that you keep in mind. You understand the nature of the optional first. Second thing that you keep in mind is, what is the performance of the optional in the civil services examination? Whether the optional is able to do well or not. Whether the optional is able to aid students to realize their dream or not. You know, I'm not saying that all the optionals perform differently. But what I'm saying is that there is a definite trend that can be discerned by looking at the pattern of the result in the last few years, where some subjects tend to show a little more success rate compared to others. There might be varied reasons for this, but there is definitely a pattern in the way optionals perform in the civil service mains examination. Therefore, what we are supposed to do is, we are supposed to take a look at the past performance of that optional. Okay, so take a look at that. See if the option is showing a reasonably good success rate. See if the option is able to attract a good number of students towards it. See, a lot of students taking an optional means that the optional is popular for some reason, isn't it? So look at the performance of the optional. That's the second thing that you keep in mind. Okay, look at the success rate, look at the number of students who are picking up the optional. Okay, the third thing that you keep in mind is how much the option is able to absorb you, how much the option is amenable to your style of study and understanding, whether the option is able to interest you or whether you find the optional dry and disinteresting. Okay, trying to understand the optional and trying to see if you are okay with the optional or not. You know, when I had taken my civil service mains for the first time, a friend of mine advised me to pick up psychology, because at that time I had cleared my preliminary even before I knew I could clear it. Okay, and then I was not ready for the mains. Actually, one optional I had not even picked up. So a friend of mine suggested me to pick up psychology, because he said, you'll just get marks, that's it. And because of my lack of proper knowledge, I simply picked it up. But then I realized that every page was a struggle for me. I struggled with the concepts and I just gave up in the midway. I couldn't do the optional at all. You know, it just didn't suit my psyche. Therefore, amenability of a candidate with the optional also is a very important factor, because you'll have to study the syllabus in and out. You'll have to update yourself with latest or recent developments in the optional. You'll have to practice writing answers. The optional should make you probe a little deeper. Optional should make you study and gain clarity over the various concepts. Optional should interest you to update, write tests, evaluate, get your scripts evaluated, and so forth. Optional should be amenable to the candidate. That's also a very important criteria that you keep in mind before selecting an optional. I have known students who have missed out on their attempt just because they picked up a wrong optional. And because some students have persisted with the same optional years by without realizing that the option doesn't suit them, have simply lost the chance of getting into a service. So picking up the right optional is a very, very important thing that you should keep in mind. You know, give a lot of thought, probe, see if you can get hold of some literature and study. You know, today you have Googles and all that. You can Google up and see if some literature that you study with respect to a concept in that option is interesting you or not. Okay, so amenability of the optional to the student also is a very important thing. Fourth, how much of guidance or coaching or mentorship or support that you can get in your preparation for the optional. You know, and that also is a very important factor. Today, when I go around and see, I see so many new services being offered. Mentorship program, test series program, a foundational course program, you know. So whatever the support that you can get for an optional, see if that is going to really help you in the examination or not. You know, of course, for all these things to really bear fruit, you require to have a proper understanding of the optional. You require to have conceptual clarity. You require to get to know the drift and the pulse of the subject. That's very important. Unless you are able to do that, you cannot avail of the various other services that are available in the market. See whether the optional that you have picked up, okay, has sufficient avenues for proper coaching, guidance, and so forth. That's the fourth aspect. That also is a very key aspect, my dear friends. A good number of students tend to neglect this. Okay, just because somebody had said in the market, you just go and approach an institute and try to get some coaching there. But selecting the right place, selecting the right mentor, that also is very important thing as far as this examination is concerned. Okay. 5. Now, I would rate this 5th factor also as a very important factor in the recent scheme of things. That is, how much the optional is helping your preparation in general studies. Because as I told you a few minutes earlier, that in the present scheme of the civil service examination, the weightage for general studies is double compared to the optional. So, how much your preparation for your optional is going to aid you in your general studies. Now, that also has of late become an important criteria for students, because whatever you study for your optional, if it is helping you strengthen yourself in general studies, now that's a bonus, isn't it? Okay. So, keep these 5 things in mind. Understand the nature of the optional. Look at its performance in the recent examinations. See if the optional interests you, attracts your imagination. 4th, see if there is guidance and coaching available for the optional so that you can sharpen your skills, your knowledge, your domains in that optional. And 5, see how much the optional is aiding you in your preparation for other segments of the civil service examination, particularly general studies or generalism. Now, keeping these things in mind, you pick up an optional. Okay. Now, whether political science is a manageable optional or not, now, that's a thing that a lot of students have in their mind. Can we manage with this or not? Now, please remember that political science offers its own set of demands first. Okay. As I told you, political science is an option which is based on understanding. It goes in a flow, isn't it? Therefore, understanding the concepts is the key for preparation for political science and international relations. Understanding the concepts. Conceptual clarity is the key as far as PSIR is concerned. Okay. If you speak about the concept of justice, you should be able to properly identify what is the essence of this concept. You know, a lot of students tend to neglect this aspect. For example, you know, we all know the meaning of the word republic. A republic is a type of government in which the highest head is elected either directly or indirectly by people through periodic elections. Isn't it? So, a republican form of government requires 1. Elected head, 2. Elected directly or indirectly by people, 3. Elected through a periodic election. So, in case there is a head of a state who is elected for a lifetime, it is not to be a republic, it's not to be called as a republican form of government. A republican form of government requires periodic elections, whether it is for 5 years or 10 years or whatever. Okay. Now, this is a republican form of government, you know. So, 3 things here: elected head, elected by people directly or indirectly, and 3, elected through a periodic election. But this is not the essence of the concept of republic. This is not the essence. What is the essence of the term republic? The essence is the rule that the highest head should be elected applies for every political office in this country, starting from the President of India till the Panchayat President. Every political office should be elected office. It means that there cannot be monarchs who can enjoy hereditary rights of rule. There cannot be ruling classes. There cannot be political privileges. Every political office should be elected by people. This is the meaning of republican form of government. You know, this is understanding the essence of the concepts. Merely stopping at definition doesn't give you the essence of things, isn't it? Political science is optional, which requires candidates to understand the essence. That's the reason why consulting the right literature and having the right instruction is important for political science. Okay. Secondly, political science requires candidates to have or adopt interdisciplinary approach. You look at the syllabus of political science, you'll understand that. In political science, you'll study a little history, you'll study polity, you'll study little of India's foreign affairs, you will study little economy, you know. As a part of political science syllabus, you study land reforms, planning, new economic policy, liberalization, globalization, You study about World Trade Organization and how India and other developing countries have interacted in the World Trade Organization. You study about international financial organizations like IMF and World Bank. Okay, so much of economy that you study as a part of political science. Political science students require to adopt interdisciplinary approach. They should focus on conceptual clarity. They should have the ability to integrate their preparation of current affairs with their preparation of PSIR. Whenever you study something that you think is relevant for your understanding of political science, you should be able to integrate it with political science. That's the reason why I keep telling to my students, you prepare your own notes. Integrate your understanding of current affairs with PSIR. Okay? That's the reason why having a personal notes is important for students preparing for political science and international relations. If you can do these things, okay, then political science, I'll tell you, is a very, very rewarding option. It will ease your preparation in general studies as well. Okay? So, understanding the concepts, interdisciplinary approach, ability to integrate preparation of PSIR with current affairs, having your own personal notes prepared earnestly, and finally, of course, you're required to practice writing answers. Now, this is true for almost every optional, but more so for political science. Why? Because in political science, your answers required to be evaluated properly for any kind of inadequacies, either in content or in organizing your answer or in drawing conclusions or in understanding the drift of questions, from various angles, the way you have written your answer should be properly evaluated. So, practicing answers of previous year's questions or questions designed by your faculty, that also becomes a very important component of your preparation for political science and international relations. Okay. So, remember that political science, as I told you, is an option which is very manageable, and there is nothing in political science that cannot be understood. Nothing. Okay. This is the truth. Whether you study section A, political philosophy of Plato, Aristotle, or whether you study several concepts, or whether you study Indian political thought or Indian freedom struggle, or whether you study international relations, the theories of international relations, or whether you study Indian foreign policy, there is nothing in political science that cannot be understood. Okay? This, I'd say with a lot of authority, because I've known students with diverse backgrounds feel comfortable with political science. There is no jargon, there is no formulae, there is nothing in political science that you'll have to compulsorily memorize, but you'll have to understand. You should have conceptual clarity. This is the key for political science. A lot of students tend to miss out on this. Okay? So, choose wisely and choose carefully, whenever you think about optional called political science. Now, let us try and... Good afternoon, students. Welcome to Vishnu IAS Academy. My name is Gautam, and I'll be dealing with political science and international relations, the optional for civil assessments. Now, you know that in recent times, PSIR or political science and international relations had become a very popular optional among the students. Now, there are a series of reasons as to why PSIR has emerged as such a popular optional, starting from the relevance that PSIR has in the present scheme of the civil service examination, as well as the type of result or success rate that PSIR had been showing in recent times, had made this optional little popular among the students. A lot of students have a series of doubts on whether political science and international relations as an optional is amenable to them or not, whether they will be able to manage with the optional, and there are also several myths surrounding the idea that political science has got a lot of syllabus that requires to be covered, and of course, there are even arguments that political science and international relations require students to study two subjects, paper 1 about political theory and paper 2 about international relations. All these arguments against political science tends to make students think twice about PSIR. Okay. Today, we'll try and understand how good political science and international relations is as far as the optional is concerned, and whether PSIR is amenable to students of diverse backgrounds or not. What is the nature of syllabus in political science, what are the demands in the optional, and whether you require to have an academic background in political science to pick up this optional or not, and how this option is going to help you in various stages of your preparation for civil services. About all these questions we'll try and answer today. Okay. More importantly, I'd like to draw your attention to the scheme of the present civil services examination as different from the scheme earlier, so that you can get a right perspective on what should be your focus in your preparation. Paper 1, which is called India after Independence. You know, the integration of states, the evolution of Indian social and political system. Okay, and the series of events that had shaped history in the post-Indian independence period also become a part of your understanding of political science. Fourthly, in political science syllabus, you cover social issues like regionalism, communalism, caste factor in Indian society. All these topics which are there as a part of your understanding of Indian society in paper 1 GS are also covered as a part of political science syllabus. Next, in paper 2, the entire syllabus of paper 2 is covered with much more depth and understanding in the syllabus of PSIR. Whatever you study as a part of your GS paper 2 is a part of the syllabus in political science. But here, as I told you, you study this as a part of your optional. Therefore, you are more focused. You are studying it with a little more depth. You are trying to understand it from various perspectives and interpretations, Therefore, your understanding of General Studies paper 2 becomes very, very strong with your preparation for political science. Thirdly, in paper 3, topics related to Indian economy, as I told you, like economic policies, planning, green revolution, land reforms, development strategies, India's economic interaction with the world and international economic institutions like the IMF, World Bank, WTO are all covered in depth in political science. For example, when we study WTO in political science, we study GATT. We study how GATT transformed in WTO. We study how several countries have interacted with WTO over the period and how the perceptions and perspectives of the developed and developing countries have differed with respect to WTO. We'll study how India interacted with the world economically through the forum of World Trade Organization. We study things in their proper perspective in your optional. This is how political science helps you in paper 3 of general studies. Okay. And what about paper 4? In paper 4, you have ethics. Okay. In paper 4, you have ethics. And in ethics, you have several concepts. For example, you have concepts like utilitarianism, okay. You have concept proposed by Machiavelli, like the ends justify the means. These are several concepts that you study in political science, which will aid you in your writing answers for ethics. Also, there are a good number of ethical thinkers that are covered as a part of political science syllabus, like Aristotle, Machiavelli, Ambedkar, Gandhi. All these are thinkers who have contributed to ethical understanding, right? So we study about them. We study about Bentham, who proposed utilitarianism. All of them form a part of your syllabus in political science. Therefore, political science also aids in your preparation for ethics. General essay. You know that in recent times, a series of topics given in general essay were directly from the syllabus of political science. For example, topics in general studies like the relevance of NAM, reform of UN, India's neighbors, cooperative federation, all these topics are directly from the syllabus of political science. This, in fact, appears in the same wording also. Relevance of NAM, reform of UN, So, this is how, political science can actually aid in your general essay paper. Okay. And please remember, whatever that you study as a part of your current affairs aids political science, and whatever that you study in political science gives you clarity and understanding and depth in your current affairs. Therefore, in every way, political science, as I told you, is very much in tune with the present scheme of the civil service examination. Okay, and that's the reason why a lot of students have found it comfortable to pick up political science. Now, what about the performance of political science in recent times? Okay, now as I told you, political science in recent times had been performing well, and it shows a success rate of anywhere between 8% to 10%. And there are at least 2 or 3 selections of students with political science in the top 10, which shows a very high success rate. And of course, you also know that since the last 3 or 4 years, continuously the number of students who are taking mains with political science is on the rise. So, of the students who are taking their mains examination after qualifying preliminary, we see a continuous rise of students who have opted with political science as their optional for their mains examination. Okay. So, both in terms of number of students, the success rate, and in the top 10, also the 3, I would say the prime indicators for an optional's performance, in all these 3 segments, political science has been showing a promise. And that's the reason why a lot of students are able to pick up this optional. So, this very briefly is about political science and how political science can help you in your general studies and whether political science can be a good optional for you or not. Okay. So, all those hearsays about vastness of the syllabus, okay, because whatever that you study as a part of paper 1 section B, paper 2 section B, and approximately around 40 to 50% of what you study in section A, paper B, all aid in your understanding of general studies. Therefore, political science is very enriching and very much value adding to your preparation of general studies. Okay. So, don't go by this argument that political science has vast syllabus and all that. Please remember, the syllabus in optionals will more or less be the same. The difficulty level will more or less be the same. And whatever is the difference is only minuscule or a meager difference. Okay. So, with respect to optionals, don't think that one optional has very small syllabus, the other optional has very big syllabus. It doesn't make such kind of a difference. Okay. However, please also remember that optionals with a limited syllabus are actually going to be a trap rather than a blessing. You know why? Because the small syllabus is small for every candidate who is preparing for that optional. Therefore, the examiner would make the questioning pattern more difficult. Okay. In political science, you know, the concepts are very straight, the questions are very straight. There are no tricky questions, there are no mind teasers in political science like you have in optionals which claim to be having very small syllabus, you know. So, please remember that having small syllabus or big syllabus is not a big criteria. Okay. This is an examination of a very, very high scale. You require to be at your top notch if you want to clear this exam. Okay. You require to make the right decisions. You require to pick the right literature. You got to do the things that the optional requires you to do. Okay. If optional demands you to practice writing scripts, you have got to do that. Okay. So, see if the optional is amenable to you. Okay. And go ahead with your preparation. Okay. Now, as far as political science is concerned, as I told you, there is nothing in the syllabus, entire syllabus, that cannot be understood. Let us be very clear about this. Secondly, there is nothing much in political science that requires candidates to memorize. Okay. But what is very important as far as political science is concerned is that you require to have conceptual clarity. When you're asked, what is democracy? You should be able to tell properly what do you mean by democracy. Okay. If you're asked to write about justice, you should be very clear in your mind as to what exactly does the idea of justice connotate. That clarity should be there with you. That's the key. That's the thing for political science. Okay. And please remember that getting to know the concept is the key. And for that, you got to have the right approach. Okay. Now, looking at why a lot of doubts are being raised on the option of political science is because students tend to have some kind of a phobia for terms like philosophy. We have something called political thought in section A paper 1. Okay, I have known students who have come to me and asked me, sir, Plato's, Aristotle's, Machiavelli's, Karl Marx's ideas, can we manage with this? Okay, a student who had done his BTech comes and asks me, can I manage with this political thought? Okay, let me tell you that there is absolutely nothing that is difficult in this segment of the syllabus. A lot of people tend to picturize this part of syllabus to be very slippery and beyond the understanding of common man. It's not like that. Okay, they're all very easy. For example, if Plato says that the rulers should not have right to property, and he proposes an idea called communism of property for the rulers, he is saying this primarily because he believes that there should not be a coincidence of political and economic power. Those who wield political power should not have economic power, and those who wield economic power should not have any share in political power. Now, he says this primarily because if there is a coincidence of political and economic power, political power can be used to accumulate wealth, and wealth can be used to retain and capture political power. Therefore, there should not be any kind of a coincidence. Right? That's the reason why he says that the rulers gain eligibility to rule provided that they are ready to sacrifice their right to property. This is a concept. If you understand these concepts in the way they should be understood, political science becomes a very easy course. Okay, so these are a few things that I wanted to say about political science. Now, looking at the ways and means of scoring high in political science, what do we do to score high in political science? Please remember that candidates get very, very high scores in political science provided, as I told you first, they take care about clarity of the concepts. First, okay, and that's very clearly seen by the examiner, whether a candidate has clarity in the concept or not. Okay, if we are asked about democracy, what exactly do you understand by democracy? In a classroom, we see so many different interpretations of democracy as many number of students in the classroom. Some people call democracy as having elected government. Some people call democracy as people possessing political rights, including the right to press and right to criticize government. People equate democracy with rule of law. Some people tend to say that democracy is a government of the people, by the people, for the people. Different kinds of interpretations come out of students when we ask them about what exactly do you understand by the concept of democracy. Very rarely we come across the right interpretation of democracy. I'm sure you all might have encountered this. Okay, once just sit back, close your eyes and think about democracy and how do you understand democracy. Okay, check for yourself whether your idea of democracy is the right idea or not. Check for yourself whether your idea of democracy distinguishes it from the opposite of democracy called dictatorship. Okay, this is what's called as conceptual clarity. Demos, people, crucio, power. People exercising power. People exercising power for what? People exercising power for taking decisions. How? Through the principle of majority. Democracy is a type of government in which majority people's opinion forms the basis for all or major public decisions. That is called a democracy. It's got nothing to do with elections. It has got nothing to do with political rights. It has got nothing to do with freedom of press. It has got nothing to do with political privileges. All these are conditions only. Democracy in essence is something else. Whatever we discussed just now as free, fair and periodic elections, freedom of press, political rights to people, rule of law, all these are only some conditions required for democracy. Democracy by essence is something else. It is this conceptual clarity that every candidate should possess on every concept. You're speaking about liberty, or you're speaking about equality, or you're speaking about justice, or you're speaking about the present international economic order, Or if you are speaking about simple concepts like constitutionalism also, you require to have conceptual clarity. Or if you are simply speaking about what is a right, when right also is a concept. How do you describe a right? If somebody asks you, how do you describe a right? You should tell them, right is a claim of an individual or a group of people recognized by society and enforced by law. Right therefore requires three important qualities. It should be claimed by an individual or a group of people, and that claim should be recognized by society, and that claim should be enforced by law. These three traits make a right a right. This is the meaning of conceptual clarity. That is the key for political science. Okay? Don't be deterred by the so-called myth of extensive syllabus and studying two subjects and political thought which is not comprehensible for common man. Don't be deterred by all these things. Check out for yourself. Okay? Talk to faculties who can guide you. See if you are comfortable with the optional by just going through a few concepts or a little literature. Look at the syllabus and see if the syllabus will absorb you. Okay? And then think about political science. Okay? This is one thing that I wanted to tell about political science. So first thing that you require to compulsorily try is to secure what's called as conceptual clarity. Second requirement for scoring very high marks in political science, ability to integrate the preparation of current events with the PSIR. Because I told you that whatever you study in current affairs can help you in political science. Whatever you study, even some segments of, let's say, science and technology can also aid in your preparation for political science. You know how? You can study about the defense technology, missile technology in science and technology. Okay? You can study about the issues related to environment. Okay? You have conflicts related to environmental negotiations in political science. Environment as an important issue in international relations. Today, you know that a lot of negotiations are going on, isn't it? For reducing the greenhouse gases, for reducing persistent organic pollutants. A lot of negotiations are going on across the world to take steps to control or curb global warming. You know, all these things, a series of protocols and agreements and conventions have been finalized related to environment. But there are problems in negotiations. There are conflicts in environmental negotiations as well, you know. So even what you study as a part of environment and ecology in science and technology also is going to help you in political science. Okay? These can be important inputs in enriching and value adding your answers, provided you are good in your concepts. Okay? So if you are able to integrate current events with political science, if you are able to achieve conceptual clarity, and if you are able to adopt interdisciplinary approach, trust me, my dear friends, you can get very, very high scores in political science. Okay? This is one small presentation that I wanted to do about political science. If you have any queries, any doubts, I'll be available at Vishnu IAS Academy. Okay? You can always have a talk. And what is it that we would be doing here at Vishnu IAS Academy with respect to PSIR, Political Science and International Relations? Now, we have designed a program for political science and international relations where the entire syllabus is broken down into 11 modules, and the presentation of the entire syllabus, the lectures related to the entire syllabus will be taking around 128 days, excluding 11 days, which will be for you to write some tests on the syllabus that we have completed in the previous modules. Okay, so we'll have 11 tests and we'll have 128 days of classes at a rate of 2 to 3 hours each day. With this, we'll be able to complete the entire syllabus of political science. Okay, here we also provide you with structured material. We also provide you with several slides which are a part of the entire syllabus, and then we also give you printed material for important concepts and topics in political science. Okay. Along with this, in the classroom, notes will be dictated for very, very important concepts. For example, Plato's theory of justice or Marxian theory of consciousness, for very important concepts and topics, notes will be dictated right away in the classroom. Okay. So for some topics, you'll be given handouts in the form of printed material. For very important topics, dictation will be given in the classroom for you to take down your notes. Okay. So evaluation will be there, and your scripts will be corrected, and we will try to complete the syllabus in the set period. Okay. So this is what we'll be doing as a part of our Political Science and International Relations optional in Vishnu IAS Academy. Okay. If you have any queries, any kind of doubts, you can always reach up to the office and you can get your doubts cleared or clarified. Okay. And I wish you, my dear friends, all the best for your endeavor and your effort at civil services. Thank you so much.